Right, okay, well, these guys don't need any more introduction because, you already got to meet them. So let's get right to it. We'll start off with an easy one. An easy one, when is my test cooked? When should I stop my test? What should be my stopping rule? Lukas?
You mean when are you done?
When am I done?
You should have decided it up front.
Good question. Well, good answer, I mean. You should have decided up front, so?
Right, so you decide up front how long you're going to run the test. You run the test that long.
And how do you make that decision?
How long are you going to run?
Yeah.
What Yuan was saying, you use a power calculator. You say, this is my traffic, this is the uplift I expect, and this is how long I'm supposed to run it.
All right, so let's say that I estimate, 20% lift, and I got the result in half an hour. Then what? Implement it?
I would run it at least 2 business cycles, and it depends on what your business is. So in our case, that's 2 weeks.
How do you determine how long is your business cycle?
Well, I assume you've asked customers how long it takes them to make a decision. I assume you have data to back that up.
Don't assume anything.
Okay, well, in that case, probably ask your customers how long it takes them to make a decision. Look at the session data you have, so from the first time they hit the site till they make a booking or they make a purchase, how long is that? If that's a couple of days or a couple of hours, then you could say, well, in the beginning, when I'm running my experiment, there's going to be people who are buying stuff who actually were not exposed to the experiment in the first place because the experiment wasn't running when these people were first exposed to my site. On the other end, at the end of the experiment, there's going to be people who were exposed to your experiment, but they'll make a purchase after your test ends. So you want it's only the people in the middle that were fully, nicely exposed to your experiment, where you have the full purchasing cycle. So you want to have a length of time that's long enough that you have enough of those people in there. There's a big difference between days of the week for most companies. Definitely for us, there is. So a week is the minimum. Then if I only do a week, then I'll have 1 Monday, 1 Tuesday, 1 Thursday, 1 Friday. So that's why I say 2 weeks. But if you're a car website and people take 2 months to decide, then probably need a longer cycle.
Yeah, just to chime in, I think the issue is that when we're doing online testing, we kind of assume that we're taking random samples, but unfortunately we never really take a random sample. We're really taking a convenience sample, and that's because the users are presenting themselves to us, and all we're really doing is randomly allocating based upon as users appear to us. So we're kind of, when we talk about when you're talking about the cycle or the period of your traffic, we're really trying to emulate a random sample of your users, and that's one issue, is that we have to kind of block in these discrete units. And the second issue to think about is, and I think in your talk you're discussing it, is the notion that maybe things are kind of changing over time, and so it really, you have to think through what the nature is of your traffic behavior, and it may be that, to Lucas's point about the bandit, that you in a way never want to shut off the test. It really is going to depend upon the case. All
right. Well, it's something that Matt, you touched upon. You said p-values are not anymore considered useful in many scenarios. So p-value, a statistical confidence as a stopping rule, should we even care about that? And what's the deal?
Are people seriously doing this? Can I see some hands? Who's stopping the test? Who stops the test at 90%? Come on. Come on. No one?
We won't beat you too hard.
You should never do this.
All right. So.
wait. I want to get back to that. That's a little harsh. I think, especially because there's been some other tools out there that actually were alerting customers that they should stop once it reached a threshold. So I didn't say that no one thinks that it's a value, but that there's just there's sort of a controversy around it. But again, it really should be, the standard way to do it is really you sort of pre-select how long you're going to be running your test for.
All righty.
So let me. Okay, let me back up on that. So the moment you would call a test prematurely, when I would call a test prematurely, I'm not even looking at the statistics anymore. Like the difference has got to be so big that statistics are irrelevant. Like if you have twice the number of, if you have thousands of conversions and you have tens of thousands in your variant, like statistics is useless, right? Any tool that will show you a g-test number will basically say 100%. And if it keeps saying 100% for a very long time, then at some point you're going to say, well, okay, now it's time to call the test.
Well,
But
so if
not
we
an
have a
ID.
change like this, where it's double, the lift is double, sample, not so long, but let's say maybe they took 4 weeks to run this test. What should we conclude here? 100% significance.
Yeah,
What's the question?
There's 210 visitors.
Is this a valid winner? Do I have a winner and I declare that, yep, we're going to go with A still?
Wait, is this my example that I sent you?
It is.
Cool.
Yeah.
So,
first one, when I look at this, right, this is incredibly small sample size. I don't know how long this test been running, really, I think it's too small to even call. And when we're using test and target for a very large site, we definitely try to use 200 plus conversions each recipe before we start look at the results, because it's too small a sample size. The statistical randomness is something you guys are very heavy in stats. This doesn't look like enough sample size to call results from what I can tell.
But this looks like a sample size that's too small to even run tests on your website. Like if this is what you got in a
well,
few
let's
weeks.
say I'm starting to run a test, and then already 3 days in, it's like, hey, I'm seeing a trend here, and my CEO is saying, yeah, we're agile, we need to test faster. So can I spot a trend? You can just say no.
You can think maybe you have a trend, I don't know, but you wouldn't, again, this just gets back to the question of that we take convenient samples. So if you haven't sampled at least over the normal period of your traffic, then you don't have enough data yet to assess the marginal efficacy.
Awesome. So when should I use A/B test? When should I do multivariate? When should I do bandits?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that one, and feel free to add in there. Bandit, I will leave it to Lukas. For A/B testing, I try to use it either something fairly simple, just 2 recipe, or I'm actually trying to use it when it's major site changes, when they're touching a lot of things. The multivariate wouldn't be able to scale all the change element. I would just use simple A/B. But then leveraging the segmentation tools, I think you both talked about, look at them before, look at the new versus repeat marketing channel, different segment of customers, how they behave. I use multivariate, it really depends on different tools. Like for example, if you use test and target, they give you a contribution element, but it really don't give you, basically you run a multivariate, you have to run the A/B, adding all this together, because they do a Taguchi method, which is sampling. For example, if it's 3 by 3, they give you 8 recipe, but the combination is actually 27. So what it does, it uses Taguchi method, so they give you the contribution of each contribution element, success element, but it didn't necessarily having one recipe having all the success in there. So you have to do another A/B. So it's complicated. I try to just run A/B. I would rather just be something simple I can get to it, rather than really complicated thing that I can't read the results on. That's just my personal preferences.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, so on e-commerce side, lots of different types of pages.
Are you in a hurry, Pep?
I am. We need to get through lots and lots and lots of questions. So I'm an e-commerce test. I have lots of pages, product card, whatever. So if I have these multiple tests running on all of these different types of pages, but we're measuring the same goal, like, does that make sense?
Yes.
I had a test where B beat A, and I implemented it. But 6 months down the line, I'm like, is the uplift still there? A year later?
You should be worried about C. That beats B and A.
Hey. Well, I have a SaaS product, and I'm spending money to acquire customers, and it's a free trial sign-up. But actually, I'm making money when the trial period ends and they become a paid conversion, actually paying users. So how do I know, how do I know that these trial signups actually become paid customers, paying customers? How can I run tests that measure that?
You either test for a very long time, or you find a proxy that indicates whether people are going to stay. So I don't have a SaaS product, but I can imagine if people use the product for the entire month, or maybe the first 5 days, then that's a good indication that it will buy in the end. And so you can test for a proxy metric rather than the end goal, then you can test faster. But ideally, you want to test for a metric that's really indicative of your bottom line. So in this case, you want to run longer. I mean, Netflix runs tests for 3 months because they want people to stay with Netflix, right? That's their target. And they use proxies to decide whether they're going to keep the test running or kill it early. But in the end, that's what they're optimizing for.
For this one, if I add one more thing here, it looks like it's 3-day pre-trial, but you wanted to look at the paid conversion, right? This is a customer lifetime value, so you want to look at a little bit longer time. This is the attribution kicks in, right? Really want to watch after 30 days, did they return? Did they reject? Did they continue to be? What's the lifetime value of the customer? I will look a little bit further beyond the A/B testing results, but look at your backend system to understanding the long-term value or engagement of such customer.
All right, so I have a page. Let's say it's a product page. Can I run an A/B test on the same page while let's say I'm banding testing button color or whatever, and A/B testing copy at the same time on the same page? Can I do it, and do you recommend it?
Yes.
Yeah, this one you can probably run I would suggest that if just one layout, one call to action, I will make it a 2x2 because this is basically a ABCD results. You can get it pretty quickly. I would do a 2x2 multivariate and get this done.
Well, let's say that you're testing an element where there's no learning to be had. So let's say I'm testing a photo. I mean, I don't know which photo is going to work the best, but whatever the photo is going to be about, I'm not necessarily going to learn much about it. So does it make sense that I'm running bandits on those things and then A/B testing stuff that I can learn from?
So, these questions are interesting, right? But what if your competitor is running a bandit? He's influencing conversion on your site. Do you worry about your competitor running a test? No, you don't. You randomize samples, and yes, there are issues with that, but you can't take all these things into account. Feel free to disagree.
I don't know about that. Yeah, no. I think in spirit I agree with you. I'm not sure though. Again, I don't know if you possibly have confounding going on to think about it, but you might, depending upon how your traffic is flowing in, and it depends upon the nature of what bandit you're running. But you're reallocating. Let's say there is tremendous efficacy within the test that you're adaptively running, right? So we'll call a bandit test like an adaptive test, and the distribution is changing. I'm not sure how that might affect the variance and the results, especially if the traffic is coming in at different rates. You might average over. I guess it should be allocated. I guess it should be randomly allocated to both. So yeah, I'm not sure, but I think
the randomization of your sampling should solve that.
Yeah,
just like it should solve, more people coming from Asian countries because random. There's always things going on that will influence the composition of your traffic, and that's why you randomize allocation to base or variant, because there are things going on out in the outside world that you have no control over that might influence the results, and you hope that by randomizing that sample, you somehow.
Now, what you could do, you could just spawn off a feature that lets the system know what the bandit selection was, and then you could cross that against your A/B test, and you could do an implicit multivariate test that way. You could analyze it that way if you wanted to. I don't know.
So just like you would analyze, you would segment your results by say language or geographic location. You would segment by what the bandit said.
Yeah,
during
you could
that
do
test. So you can look at your results of the A/B test as a whole, but also per arm that the bandit selected. Yeah.
All right, next question. So we talked about pre-calculating sample size, if I know how many transactions, but if my KPI is RPV, revenue per visitor, does anything change?
Yeah, so that's not binomial, so I don't know how to do that.
So for this one, if I may add on this one, Revenue per visitor, right? There are two pieces to it: the average order value and conversion. Do you get more people to buy or people to buy more? Really need to get into that. Figure out which lever you're going to pull, because the calculator could be built based on AOV, could be built on conversion, and these two equation adds to be the revenue per visitor. So break it up, understanding what you're truly going to measure, truly going to manage, then you can put into either conversion or average order value into the calculator to calculating how long it needs to run. Yeah, there are two things in there, because it's not going to get what you're looking for, because this is a metrics made up of two parts. Really need to kind of peel the onion to figure out what exactly you are trying to measure. Well, which one is the impacting factor of the revenue per visitor, right? It could be average order value, or it could be conversion. Yeah.
All right, so lots of tests are invalid because it wasn't set up properly. So in your experience, how often does that happen?
With us, never.
It depends on the dev. I can't give you any names.
Yeah.
But I've had multiple teams where, some dev is better than other.
Yeah.
And then, when you're setting up the test, you go, yeah, this test is really important, so I'd rather have Bob set it up.
Awesome. So running tests for everybody and then doing segmentation after, or running tests targeting specific segments?
Do you want them to be in sync or not? Like, are you going to put them both full on? It depends on the decision, right? So are you going to put them both full on? Or would you consider putting one full on and the other not?
I'm testing the same thing for all of them, for all the segments, and it's 100% per segment. Or should I just run the test for 100% traffic and do post-test segmentation to analyze how the test performed across segments?
No, so this setup depends on the decision you're willing to take. Like, if you are going to make a go, no-go decision for all platforms anyway, then why run it as separate tests? Right? The separate test is only useful if you say, well, maybe I want to do it on desktop, but not on tablet.
Well, let's say that my mobile traffic is 20%, desktop is 80%. After 2 weeks, desktop sample size perfectly adequate, but I can't stop the test because the mobile segment still needs like 3 more months. So it's regret, because now I could be testing something else on desktop, but I can't because I need the sample size for the mobile.
But you already decided that you wanted to put them full on at the same time.
Well, I was stupid.
So you're basically, your mobile is lifting on your desktop now.
All right. Now, questions from the audience. Leho, do we have questions?
We have a super interesting first question. Can Lukas be a tiny bit nicer? So what is the nicer version of Lukas?
Who said that?
12 people at the very least.
A question or a request?
Not sure. Either way. There you have it. That's a valid answer. And the next has for the question: what is your stance on changing the percentage traffic allocation to a test cell during an A/B test if it looks promising? Okay, it's a long question.
Can we have the Q&A thing displayed on the screen, please? Ivar, maybe can you help? Or?
Yeah, that would actually make sense. So I think that what they're asking is changing traffic allocation in the middle of a test towards the winner, essentially.
So that's Simpson's paradox, right? So you risk biasing your result by doing that. So
Well, you would have the same problem if you weren't running, if you were doing a bandit and you were doing probabilistic matching or value matching. You're reallocating, and so I'd say why not? I mean, if you're trying to like run a statistical test and you're under that formalism, then no, you probably shouldn't. But if you're treating it more as like a bandit test, then it's kind of like a bandit problem, right? You're kind of reallocating.
I actually have an example of this, but I need to put up a computer. Pep?
What?
I have an example of this exact thing, but can I walk over there and show it? Is that
Yes,
cool?
please. Live demo.
Live demo.
This is Lukas being nice. Absolutely.
Glee. You want to give us like other questions?
Yes, meanwhile, another question.
VWO versus Optimizely, pros and cons.
No comment.
Which one? What's the first?
VWO, Visual Website Optimizer, or
Yeah. I didn't use that one, but I used I didn't use the first one, but I used the second one, Optimizely. It's fairly lightweight, right? So I really think it'll be good for doing some of the marketing campaign type of optimization, but I haven't found it to be very robust. If you're gonna using changing your navigations and search results, integrating into your backend system, I think it's a little bit lightweight for Optimizely. Now, if you really wanna, I call it a pistol tool, and I call tools like a test and target, cannon tool, right? So just definitely depending on your purpose, you want to choose differently.
the test and target is large organizations.
Right, it's very development heavy, but it's also very robust. And Optimizely is a rapid innovation. You can do a lot of marketing driving type of tool. It doesn't have to necessarily need developer, but it's, its setup is simple. The code can be generated by itself. The measurement is pretty lightweight, just lightweight tool. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Lukas, what about the demo?
Yeah, so I think this was the question, like, can I change the allocation? So this is an example where you ran a test for 1 week and you had, you were cautious because you thought this thing was going to bomb. So you assigned 99% of the traffic to variant A and 1% to B. And you ran it for a week and you see these results, and that's statistically significant difference. So you ramp up the traffic for B, and can you go to the next one? So you ramp up the traffic, you now assign 50-50 in the second week, and you can see that if you add up all the data from the first and the second week, it looks like now A is actually better than B. So the trend is completely reversed. So both of these are statistically significant, right? So the problem is if you are adding up these 2 weeks, most of the traffic went to A, and in the second week it was split 50-50. So in the data, the complete data set, about 2/3 of all the traffic in the data you have for A is from the first week, but the majority of the traffic in B is from the second week, like 99% of the traffic. So if you go to the next guy, if we take only the second week, we see that B was actually consistently 10% better than A, but the overall global conversion rate dropped by something. And this could easily happen in our business, for instance, if this is the week before Easter and the week after Easter, this could easily happen. Conversion rates change over time. And so if you change the assignment to, or the way you split between 2 variants, you could easily run into a problem like this, where the global changes in conversion rates start affecting the results you see. So if you change the distribution, reset the data, reset the test, because you're basically doing a new test.
But you have to be,
Let's move on. Thank you. The question about optimizing in VWO, who is our event partner? VWO! Okay, next question. Guys, can you see the
Matt
screen
not
here?
respond?
So, low traffic websites cannot really run A/B tests. So what should they do instead?
I don't know.
Talk to me later about it.
Go work for McDonald's.
Run a test that lasts for a year. Is that better than nothing?
Put those people on the phone and call more customers. I don't know. I mean, if it's difficult to run tests, if your sample sizes are so small, you really have to question whether it's worth it. Very similar to if you have a salesperson who calls 1 million people and gets 1 sale, you question the value of having a salesperson.
Right.
This is the same thing.
Okay. Well, we were talking about. Sorry.
Yeah, the first question. So if you don't have enough traffic to run the A/B testing, I would just look at it before and after, right? I mean, why bother running the A/B? You can't get the results.
Second one point. All right. So AA testing. What equation do you use to remove the noise from the result of an AAB test?
So first of all, removing the noise, the reason you wanted to run the AAB, from my understanding, definitely correct me wrong, whomever raised the question, would be understanding what is noise, what's the true results, right? And that's the reason you run it. So I would consider anything between the AA is really the noise. I cross finger, that's no difference or difference with no significance, meaning there's really no noise, right? So, but the reason you want to run AAB is to understand what's noise, what's the true lift. Did that answer that question? Maybe I didn't. Okay, great, thank you. Yeah.
You're sticking your finger in the wind and trying to gauge, like, how bad is the noise? That's what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
It's really to get a sense of the noise, not mathematically deduct it from it.
Mm-hmm. All right, quality assurance of tests. Any tools you guys use or have heard about anyone using?
Some of the I don't know how booking.com, what we're using is sometimes like in Dell, we actually some having proprietary script, our own QA script to do. But I really felt that, regardless what tool you use, please, using human's eye, because the script don't script anything. Using human's eye, just a couple of times, look at all the browsers, different versions of browsers, different devices, making sure it's what you're looking for. Nothing is more accurate than people actually looking at this.
How scalable is that?
What's that?
How scalable is that?
We have a script to run this already, so a lot of times by the time it gets to the people, it's a lot of things that's already weeded out. So it's quite scalable. Now, of course, you can build a team differently. You can build it in a lower cost region, so you can have a regional coverage, 24-hour coverage. There's a way you can scale that, for sure. I don't know how bookings.com.
Is there a basic tool for statistical sampling and sample sizes that anyone out there uses?
Evan Miller's tools, Google it.
For estimating traffic.
Evan Miller for the win.
All right, next question. Any tips, I guess this is about Yuan's presentation, any tips on how to build an evaluation framework to determine if and when a previous test needs to be run again to ensure that the lift is still being achieved?
Yeah, I think that's what I was talking to as well, right? A lot of times I use that just to have a gut feel regarding if I book the revenue is still there, right? So a lot of times I try to pick sometimes I use A/B testing to push the winner, temporary implementation, flip it back to see what's in there. So I would consider the frequency, I would probably do once a quarter because it's just a validation effort. I wouldn't want to spend a lot of time, but it's good to have so you knew is it still there or not there anymore lift. So I will try to flip it over probably once a quarter. Not everything, but just randomly picking certain things to see what's the impact there. Yeah.
Interesting. I would only run we call this a negative test, and I would only do it if I want to base a decision on it to turn it off. Mm-hmm. So if there's no more lift, mm-hmm. and there's no technical debt, so there's no cost attached to having this thing on our site, I wouldn't even run the test because what am I going to change? Yeah. Right? So if this is a feature that requires a lot of computation on the server, or it requires some sort of script to run, or database, or whatever, then you could argue, well, removing it will remove the technical debt, and that's worth running a negative test. But if this is a button color, or copy change, or something that, it doesn't really matter whether it's A or B, then I wouldn't waste time on a negative test. That is eating into my testing time for other things.
Completely agree, yeah.
Perfect, let's take the next question. I guess it's for Yuan again. Any significant mobile wins on Booking? Well, he can't disclose anything. Dell.com, Office Depot. I've been hearing a lot about mobile e-commerce implementations that did not produce better mobile conversions.
There's definitely different things. We do see wins on desktop be translated into mobile and the other way around. So we have different teams running on them, and they are constantly in touch to, hey, that worked, can you try this also? But it's not one-to-one. Like the stuff that works on desktop doesn't always work on mobile and the other way around.
And I agree. This is one of the things I kind of really resonating with Amy mentioned this morning. The mobile conversion is less than 0.0. I mean, I think if I remember correctly, it's 0.02. I won't call each name, but it's a very small conversion, right? When you're using that, a lot of times, desktop, you're using that, you just don't see it. And when your base is 0.01%, where do you see the difference? What does that matter, right? So it's really kind of needs to understanding the purpose. I really think a lot of a mobile is discover. It's not a buying platform. It could be me waiting in the bus stop and doing this, right? So it's a different user it's a different usage model, right? I really, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of
We just crossed 100,000 bookings a day on mobile last month.
Oh, that's, yeah, so it's different business. I
So-
apologize for, yeah.
So people are buying on mobile.
Yeah, yeah. So great point. So it's probably a different type of business, right? People just don't buy $500 computer on their thing,
But they do book $500 resorts.
yeah. So it's interesting. So you can see it's kind of interesting discussion to have a different business, have a different model, right? One opportunity I see this. I would love for us to see that, which I don't see many platforms get there, is building the multi-channel together to understanding its Yuan on desktop and also on the mobile. That is, I think, is the next generation insights I would love to get. With that, then you can understand the usage model between desktop and mobile. That's just my thoughts. I personally haven't seen a lot of winner on the mobile, for me.
Conversion is definitely lower on mobile.
Yeah.
Depending on the platform too. I mean, for us on tablet, it's a lot higher than on M.Dot.
Right.
I've heard a number being thrown around that a typical mobile conversion rate is 25% of desktop. Well, is that similar to your experience or not at all?
No.
No. Yeah, I think it's a little lower. I mean, for us, it's a little lower. For what I've seen, it's a little lower than that, actually.
All right, awesome. Moving on, testing calculator. So we mentioned Evan Miller's sample size calculator. Any other tools you'd recommend?
You can actually, as a little exercise for yourself, you can just take the t-test and you just do a little algebra and you can make your own in Excel. So that's kind of, if you're like, this is your thing to do, I kind of recommend doing that. We used to do that back when I was in the agency back in the 90s, and we would do tests when we were sending out mail campaigns and whatnot, and that's what we would do. We would just write our own little thing. It's just a little bit of algebra, actually. So
Yeah.
I
Life's
recommend doing
easy
that.
when you're a PhD machine learning dude, isn't it?
No, it's actually, I think it's worthwhile, because then you actually get a better sense of what's happening. You can understand that actually as you alter your N, as you increase your sample size, you can make almost anything significant. So I do recommend, actually, that is a worthwhile little couple hours to do. It's not that hard.
Screen, please.
And whoever wants that too, I know there's a couple of really smart Microsoft guys, actually kind of one of the evangelists that kind of started it very early on, about 10 years ago. They actually built a calculator on the website. If you guys, whoever asked that question, send me an email, I will send that link so you can have the calculator. But to your point, you can absolutely build it.
Yeah, first you have to show your work. You got to send your work to her, and then she'll give you the cleaned up version.
Who? VWO? Yeah, Optimizely has as well. Yeah, for sure. Okay, next question. What is your recommendation for storing and organizing hundreds of testing documents? I want my team to be able to reference old test learnings quickly and easily.
And you talked about shelf life. Why do you want this?
To learn from past tests. Hey, we learned this and this about our customers, so maybe they respond well to these
Do you think that's
things.
still true?
Yeah. Yeah, so some of the things, sorry, you were gonna, some of the things when we were in a large organization, which would run about 400 to 500 tests a year. So to your point, there's a lot of learning, right? Not necessarily winner, but what didn't work. Let's not repeat the things we knew didn't work in the past, right? So there are two ways you can do. You can probably using tools like Jira, just put in the Jira, or you can use Confluence pages, but to build a good indexing way to say, here's the test idea, here is the site, here's the concept, here's the results. Easily searchable, right? So that will be my suggestion. Put into something, like a knowledge-based tool, and then building in the way that don't attach the PowerPoint deck. People have to go there and digging. It's not scalable. Just really structured in a way people can search, can look it up very quickly. That would be my suggestion. That's what we've done. Yeah.
Awesome.
Evernote tagging in Dropbox.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we use our internal
Yeah,
A/B testing
yeah.
tool, and that, I mean, then everything is in one place. So when you start a test, you have to write your own hypothesis, and when you end or full on a test, you have to explain why. And all these results can be found by anyone in the company. So If you want to know what tests the hotel page team has been running, you can see what they've been working on, what worked and what didn't. And so that's all custom built. I don't know of any tools that will help you do that.
Awesome. Okay, next question. Regarding unusual variance in AEA tests, have you seen this more or less frequently on different testing platforms like Adobe Target, Optimizely, etc.?
Yes. We run lots of AA tests, just continuously to check whether the tool's still working. And sometimes they go out of whack. Like they'll be more positive or negative than you expect. Usually it's a bug. It happens. You know, that's why you run these tests, right? You run the AA to figure out whether the tool is still working.
I think though the question is that they're trying to pick between this limited set of tools based upon the AA test.
Conductrix, anyone? Okay.
No, I'm just saying, I don't know, maybe ours is worse. I don't really know.
Poor Lukas. Okay, let's give other guys one question without Lukas. Regarding unusual, how do you ensure that your winning tests actually affect the overall conversion increase for bottom line growth?
So if I may clarify that question, winning test, depending on what KPI.
Alex, can you clarify?
Yeah, as all your tests add up, sometimes the overall conversion rate doesn't increase too. Just anything.
Yeah, so by the way, it's kind of funny, we actually done that before. I wouldn't name names. You know, we're doing that. Here's 5, 6, I need to have 80%. No, I don't see 80%. I see single digits, right? This is where I think there's a canceling effect and there is a shelf life. So don't add it up. And let's just say, you know, make it a learning, I just knew one better than the other. I don't know if it's 20% better, but I just knew it's better. So you can't add the 20% and the other on top of it, stack it up. It doesn't stack, it never stack up together. Completely agree, yeah.
Hey, Lukas, you're a good boy. You can come back now. All right, Lukas's presentation talked about the importance of multi-arm bandit testing, but then discussed the need to not continually change test percentages. Could he clarify which he prefers and why?
Well, you can answer that.
That's directly to you.
They asked me not to answer any questions.
Go ahead, Lukas.
Sorry, I can't actually see the whole question here.
So, you talked about...
It's why can you use a bandit with varying quantities and not change the test. The one thing that gave me pause in your answer, and I think it gets back to this notion of drift or whatnot, is your response was like, well, look, if we do it a week before Easter and a week after, it could be different. But that's true if you ran it for the 2 weeks and those 2 weeks were right before Easter or the 3 weeks before Easter, and then you're going to go live forever with those selected results. The environment can still change out from underneath you anyway, and so you're always kind of facing that risk, and in a way, the whole methodology is kind of predicated on this type of problem, because we run random or a certain allocation across a certain time period, and then we make a discrete choice, and then we play one, and that's like the most extreme version of altering it. So in terms of a decision problem where we're just trying to select one from another, you know, I guess it's okay if we assume that we have a sort of stationary environment. But if you want to interpret your statistical results, if that p-value or your confidence interval, your standard error is going to have meaning, then you can't do that, I think. I think if you're going to interpret the results under the framework of the null hypothesis testing framework, then you probably shouldn't, but I'm not certain. But if you just want to use it as sort of a selection criteria, then, I mean, you're exposed to that risk anyway, always. Which is, we're saying the same thing with the shelf life is the same thing as the notion that your environment changes.
Okay, so one magical test for every website that always works. What is it?
Free.
Free?
Yeah, give it
Make
away for
everything free.
Yeah,
Test.
but that works.
Yeah.
All right. I need to hire and train a conversion optimization guy to work in-house. How would I pick the right person for my company, and what tools and resources do you recommend?
So for this here's, if you have to pick one, I think the two skill sets really important. I will literally, if I'm going to hire an A/B testing expert, I will start by going into the UI developer, really just UI developer, right? Because a lot of the A/B testing is coding, it's JavaScript, right? So I will start from there. I will look for there. That's the one skill set is really important. Second skill set important is the data science, the analytics element, right? So these are the two skill sets I will look for in-house expertise. I wouldn't look for program management, and because process can kick in later, but you gotta let the tools doing its job, having people know how to interpreting things, right? Those are, I would go that before the process itself. Yeah. Does it answer?
All right, next question. Tell me more about an upper and lower level, lower funnel test.
This is for Yuan.
That was Yuan's presentation.
Yeah, so when I say upper funnel, a lot of times I consider the browse layer, the home pages, the navigation pages, product details category. I call it upper funnel. Lower funnel is, for example, is in the store or in the conversion funnel, like the cart and checkout. The question is, can I run this concurrently? I think Lukas already answered that question. Yes, you can. But before you run that, definitely run, like I said, AA here and a couple of AA here to making sure the traffic is really splitting equally between the recipe. That way you can cancel out the noise when you go down to the funnel.
Hold the mic closer, please.
Oh yeah, so I was just saying, like when you run upper and lower funnel, before you run this test, assuming there's no noise, run this AA and run a couple of AA here to making sure when you split in traffic 50-50, when you're coming down here is evenly between these two recipes. That means the noise canceling out each other, not necessarily all the time, so you wanted to watch for that. Once that is proving out to be accurate, then you can run this upper and lower funnel simultaneously without too much worry about the noise in there.
All right, two last questions. What are the biases which you are aware of that are influencing your test results or testing strategies? Biases.
You mean like human biases or statistical biases?
Confirmation biases, that sort of biases? Who asked the question? Jakub?
Just anything that you're aware of that's influencing the way you set up your test.
I think one of the speakers already mentioned confirmation bias. That's definitely one. Because most of the biases that are influencing the results are human biases, right? So things like confirmation bias or IKEA effect, the downwind effect. I built this, so it must be awesome.
Don't mind
I'm
me.
scared.
They asked me to, they made me.
I don't like this game.
Okay, last question. How to convince the client to keep testing after several inconclusive tests? The client is saying, this shit's not working. So how do you convince to keep on trying?
So if I can give one suggestion, I know I think it's a good question. I think we should talk a little bit more is, first of all, A/B testing is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And there is that odds ratio is 30%, So these are really important statistics to kind of, don't set an expectation to be here. Start from here, right? Never over-communicate, especially if you want to try to sell that. And above all, run more tests because your odds are the more you run, the chances you're going to have a win. If you only run 3, chances are none of them work, right? So it's setting expectations and using industry common practices and best practice, the level setting, the longevity of the marathon nature, non-sprint nature is really important. Just don't oversell, really. Yeah.
Yeah, that 30% estimate is actually high. For us, it's much lower.
Really?
Yeah, because we've been doing this for 7-8 years now. At some point, every pixel has been touched so many times.
Yeah.
We don't get near the 30% success. I wish we had 30% success rate.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
No, that's a really excellent point, right? I mean, when you're having a start from there, you have a lot of opportunity, you have a lot of easy fix. By the time you get 7 to 8 years, everything's pretty good already. It's hard to find that
You run out of low-hanging fruit.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, people want more. You guys are doing a good job, so we'll keep on going. Anybody needs to leave, go ahead.
So first you spank me, then you want more?
These people.
That's usually how it goes.
Okay, okay. Why do all A/B test trend line patterns look the same at the beginning? Why are they always moving around in the beginning? The graphs.
Why is there so much variance? Because you have small sample sizes, so that any deviation that comes in is going to like radically move the average around. So if you think about, I don't know, when you're back in elementary school and you had your weekly spelling test that maybe you failed every week, and so you'd try to go home, you try to go to bed before your father would come home so you wouldn't get in trouble. But you're initially...
Which is why he got a PhD.
Right, I don't have a, but why, like your first exam, your first couple exams, your average score can move around a lot. But then as you keep taking your exams, you're just going to start converged to a fixed average. So that's why. It's really, again, you know what, this is going to sound a little flippant, but actually the number one takeaway I would have for everyone in this room is actually literally go and calculate the sample size, your own sample size calculator from the T test, the T score. Because if you do that, you will see, you'll see why this has happened. You'll see why you'll have that variance. Because it all comes from the fact that we're looking at the standard error, and that, it's going to get a little technical, but it's divided by the square root event. So all of this stuff, all of our confidence, all of the notions of the sort of the variance of our samples, it's all driven by 1 over the square root event. That's like the key thing. And there's no one in here, I believe that there's no one in here who can't just go through that exercise. And you'll be empowered. You won't have to keep asking anyone. You'll understand it deeply, and you'll just be much more comfortable doing all this. So I do think it's actually a very good exercise. I hadn't really thought about it before, but I really recommend doing that.
Yeah.
You stop asking us.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. That's an excellent point. Yeah.
All right, how much conversion services cost, and for what do you charge your clients? Well, these guys are not consultants. They're not charging anything. They're being paid by their employer. So can't answer. If you want to ask me how we charge, approach me later. Yuan, we are looking at Adobe's test. It's called Adobe Target now, I think.
Yeah, yes, it is.
How valuable do you see test and target, and do you believe you have achieved an ROI with it? So
Yeah.
cost versus outcome.
Yeah, so like I said, depending on what your organization is, how big and how robust, A/B test and target, which is, they call it Adobe Target now, it's a very technical tool. So you definitely need a developer to be able to code a lot of this. But it's very robust. You can test a lot of things. We use that to testing, actually just things in cart and checkout, which is really incredibly hard. A lot of times, a lot of tools are not testable on those areas, right? It's very robust. Now, do I believe in ROI of the tool? I believe in ROI of A/B testing. Regardless of the tool, I think it's the mentality that continuous iteration and believing the A/B testing will make the customer experience better. It's going to give you the ROI. Yeah, the tool is just part of that equation, right? You have a tool, you need the people, you need the time, you name it. There is definitely cost associated with that. Yeah.
Awesome. What does it mean when 2 treatments cross over each other in your testing tool? Is that a validity threat? Can you clarify the question, anonymous person?
I think they're asking about overlapping tests.
So 2 tests at the same page running simultaneously, is that?
See a chart when the lines cross and they go back over.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
So the trend is just switching left and right.
So A was winning, B is winning, A is winning, B is
So
winning.
that means these 2 tests are not statistically significant. There's no difference just because they're switching back and forth. If that happens, you wouldn't see the p-value to be anywhere near 5%. 0.05%, excuse me. But actually 5%. Yeah, the reason it's switching is because it couldn't tell the difference. Today is better, tomorrow is worse. You won't get to the confidence there. I've seen something there like that.
Unless you have some very weird seasonality thing going on. But
or
it's very unlikely.
one today is A is better than B, tomorrow B is better than A. So just keep on. So basically, it's
But it's probably random.
Statistically insignificant results, basically. Yeah.
Any thoughts on the new optimized stats engine? Their new...
So my understanding, and I'll I shouldn't say anything. But you can look it up. I think it's based on the walled likelihood test, the sequential walled likelihood test. So you can wiki that. It's still, my only thoughts are not, I guess I'm not going to talk about it optimizedly. My sense, though, that in general, you really don't want to be using the p-value as a stopping rule. And so whether or not that's what's happening here with the sequential testing, I'm not sure. But if it is, there's this additional risk, which is called the magnitude bias. And one of the issues is with using a p-value for a stopping rule, along with all the other reasons, is that you're basically putting a threshold on how large of an effect size you can see between the two, right? And that's really kind of when we want to estimate our lift. It's like, let's say the difference between A and B. And if you stop it using the p-value at a certain point, you will only see magnitudes that are quite large, because those are the only differences that would be statistically significant. And because of that, results that you get from doing an early stop with a p-value, on average, will have a higher magnitude or a higher effect size than if you didn't. And so because they're conditioned on it. And so that is probably one of the reasons why we also tend to see, if you do that, you see these regressions back to the mean, is because you've not only, there may be an effect, right? But whatever effect you see is going to be biased in absolute value much larger. So that's an issue. My understanding, even in sequential tests, that's still an issue.
You're pretty much always overestimating the effect size.
You have to overestimate
So my understanding of what Stat Engine is doing is they use the test of power 1 to tweak the p-value as the test is going on, so they lower the threshold. Now the thing is, statistically significant doesn't mean business-wise significant, right? You can have something that's statistically significant and completely irrelevant to your business, so that's one. The other thing is that by doing this, they're controlling for a false positive, so you have less false positive, and that's good for them, because that means when the test is positive, that is more likely a real result. Now that's what Optimizely wants, because they're selling you a tool that helps you do testing, and then they want you to find results that are real. But what it also does is it increases false negatives. So you have less false positives, less times when you thought there was an effect when there wasn't, but you're also missing more real results. And as a scientist, I think this is great, because I want real results. As a bandit, I think this is terrible, because I'm missing things that are actually helping my business because I'm being a dick about my p-value.
I don't even think, though, I mean, I'm going to just gently disagree with you.
Come on, violently. Come on, we can do this.
No. But you do have this magnitude bias, though, regardless. And I'm not going to talk about optimizing, but just if you're doing that type of process, it's just something to keep in mind if you want to use it. Because if you're forecasting, you're going to be upward biased. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, agree.
All right, I think we have achieved the stopping rule, because people want to know what's for dinner. So thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.